Okay, Torkil, welcome to the Grace Health Podcast.
Thank you, Amy. Very nice to be here.
I was telling you before we hit record that I have been loosely following my HRV, which we're going to talk about today, for a while, but I don't fully understand it. And I've been wanting to have a conversation here on the Grace Health Podcast about it, but I wanted to be able to frame it up right. So when your team reached out and said, like, how we can use HRV to support our sleep and our stress, which we'll get into in a little bit, I was like, now that is a conversation that I know my community would like to have, because as women in the transition into menopause and those, who are in it, this is a real issue. So I'm so glad that we could connect and am looking forward to your education today.
True. And as you say, that's a quite stressful period in women's lives, and important in particular to have a better stress management
Yeah.
at that time. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, yes. Okay, so you have an interesting story in your health journey. Can you really quickly just share with us what that is, what that was?
Yes, firstly, I'm a Norwegian medical doctor, emergency physician. Been working as a doctor for 26 years, graduated in 98. And for the most of the time, I've been working as a normal doctor. I was focused mainly on living an adventurous life, working freelance as a doctor that I can do in Norway, working intense periods, seeing lots of patients, and then going off for some adventure. And 10 years ago, or 12 years ago is now, I was sailing with my family and we were on a 4-year trip around the world. And 1 year into that journey, we were about to go through the Panama Canal, going into the Pacific Ocean. And my father, that had just been on the boat just 1 month earlier, was suddenly diagnosed with cancer, gallbladder cancer. And only 3 months after that, he was buried. And he was 73. And I just realized that, okay, I was looking at my ancestors, other than him as well, and I could see that I get nothing free from my genes here. They were hardly getting into their 80s, none of them, not even the women. And as a doctor, I just started to realize, okay, I need to take a look at how can I live to get into my 90s so I can keep living this kind of a life, to see the world, to be able to do and kind of fulfill my dreams. And I understood that I didn't learn this in medical school. So I just had to re-educate myself and find out, what do I need to do to be healthier, because I have done all the mistakes in my book. In my book, The Pulse Cure, which is about, how to, the different best lifestyle strategies to live longer, and that is fortunately you're able to use the heart rate to track the progress of this. So I did everything wrong. So so I had a lot to change, and so I've been basically changing my life around in those 10 years, and I'm still working on it. So I did not exercise. I did not care about what I was eating, sleep. I was drinking alcohol more or less every day. It was even recommended by doctors at the time. So, and in the last 5 years, I've been using heart rate monitors like watches and rings and Whoop bands. I have 3 devices on me at the moment. I've been using them to be able to track the autonomic nervous system and the physiology in my body, which can be measured by the heart rate. And I've written a book about it. It's been just an incredible bestseller in Norway, translated into 7 languages, which is kind of changed my life, because I am really just a normal doctor from before that, and suddenly I'm getting thrown into this roller coaster ride of being a media person and kind of a spokesman for preventative health and so on. So, well, that is some of the background of
Okay.
why I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, I feel like we could take our entire time and talk about your adventure of your 4-year adventure around the world. That's incredible. You just kind of glossed right over that. So maybe another time we can we can learn about that. But what is interesting to me is, there are no shortage of books on health, well-being, taking care of yourself, eating, exercise, etc. And what I find interesting about, you say that these are my words, not yours, but you're blowing up over in Norway in terms of like people wanting your information and your insight and your wisdom, is we're really just using the data that our own body has and being more introspective about how we respond to our heart rate, to our pulse, rather than eat this, not that, exercise this way, not that way, and getting all of these external rules. And so I love that. I don't know if that's really what you meant by it, but that's kind of a connection that I'm making, because this is a new way of thinking about supporting our body in a way that, helps us thrive.
Yeah, so it's about following your heart in both senses, right?
Right.
Both in the literal sense and in the more, follow your heart as we traditionally talk about it. So, and as a doctor, we are very used to tracking the heart. That is, when a person comes into the ER, the first thing I'm looking for is the heart rate. And of course, it's important in those dramatic situations or when you're really sick. But the heart rate is kind of just like in the speedometer in your car, it's kind of a measurement of the intensity and state of your health and physiology. And that we can use this modern technology that easily tracks the heart rate and stores it, compares it with the data from millions of users, incorporating artificial intelligence and all of this new technology to be able to tell you so much more about the state of your system, what is going on under the hood, so to speak, in your own body. So it's, for me as a person and as a doctor, this is invaluable information, and that we as people can have this information on our wrist available at all times and use it to guide us towards better choices. I think that's is a revolution in my mind about how to keep ourselves healthy and avoid getting sick.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I want to take a step back, and I've used this term in our conversation already. So for those who are not familiar with it, HRV, heart rate variability. So help us understand what that is, and then what the connection between their pulse and what the difference really, like not only connection, but also the difference between pulse and HRV.
Yeah, good question. And the interesting thing is that the heart rate variability reveals the state of the autonomic nervous system. So the foundation in our body, the ancient system that we share with all vertebrates, with with your dog and your rabbit, or it's an old system that we still have in the foundation of our brains. And the autonomic nervous system, the self-governing nervous system, is divided in two parts. It's divided in the sympathetic flight, and freeze part that mobilizes us towards something we are chasing, or away from something that is chasing us, historically. Mm-hmm. So that is the mobilizing state. But we cannot be in that state all the time. That would wear us out very fast. So this system also have a recovery state, which is called the parasympathetic state, the rest and recovery state. And the good thing is that the heart rate will behave differently whether we are in the parasympathetic state or in the sympathetic state. When we are in the restful parasympathetic state and when we breathe in, the heart rate speeds up a little bit because there's more oxygen in the lung and it kind of pushes more efficiently along. And then when we breathe out and we empty part of the oxygen in our lungs, the heart rate slows down just a little bit to save some energy. But when we are in the stressful state, it's like this system gathers that, okay, this organism is in danger. We need to use all available forces even when there's less oxygen in the lungs. So it will beat at a very steady pace. So then in the restful state, there will be kind of a wavy form. The heart rate will go up and down, up and down. And in the stressful state, it will beat like a metronome, like a clock. And these wearables will detect these small differences measured in milliseconds. They will keep track of it while you are busy living your life, and will give you a presentation and an estimate of whether your stress balance is sustainable with health. If it's a good, healthy stress balance.
Okay. I have not heard it that succinctly before, so that is helpful. And it's also surprising that when we are in that parasympathetic state, that rest and digest, that our heart rate speeds up when we inhale. Did I remember that correctly? I didn't. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
I guess I would, if someone would have asked me, I would have expected it to be different. But now that you've explained it, that makes some more sense.
And you would even be able, like if you feel your heart rate on your carotid artery, for example, when it's at the lowest, when you're just waking up in the morning, you would be able to feel that small difference. So it's detectable. Yeah.
Okay. Even just with our fingers rather than a wearable. Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of us have some versions of wearables right now. I wear an Apple Watch. My husband has an Oura Ring. Just when you held up your hands, it looks like you have on your left hand an Oura Ring and an Apple Watch, I think.
It's a Garmin.
Oh, it's a Garmin. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Garmin. So the Garmin wearers, like Garmin, there's a joke about Garmin wearers, but it's basically that it's so much better than Apple.
It is, unfortunately for you. Yeah.
Yeah, but I get this pretty little band on my Apple Watch. But so say we have, and I want to talk more specifically about trackers here in a little bit, but if we have a tracker on, what do we do with this information? And I think that's where it can get a little overwhelming. Like we may get an HRV. My experience is it's kind of all over the place depending on the time of day. And then what should we be looking for? What kind of trends? What expectations should we have with these HRV numbers? And then the secondary question to that is like, should we be shooting for a particular number, or should we be looking for something different? Particularly considering like women in the age and stage of this podcast.
Yeah. So the number that most of the wearables, including the Apple Watch, will give you is the heart rate variability during the night.
Okay.
And that is maybe the most important one also. And that is when it's easiest for the devices to track the heart rate variability without many disturbances from movement and so on. So it's what you are saying, that if you're measuring at different times during the day, it can be confusing. So I think that it's not really useful to do that, actually.
Okay.
So it's much better to observe what's happening throughout the night. And then you will be able to see that if you're drinking alcohol, if you're having a late meal, if you're in the fertile part of the female reproductive life, then you will see that the week before menstruation is a heavy load on the system and with a lower heart rate variability as a sign that your body is under strain, particularly if you are among the women with the PMS symptoms. And you would be able to see it in the perimenopause and menopause, that your heart rate variability will go down in that period. And you may even see that when you are starting, for example, with bioidentical hormones, that it will improve your heart rate variability, for example. Okay. But the worst things for your HRV overnight would be late night meals, alcohol, or too much stress in general. And that you would get from your Oura Ring and your Apple Watch and your Whoop band that I have on my other arm here. But the by far best instrument, if you really want to understand what's going on in your physiology, that's the Garmin watches, because they will give you a much easier readout from the whole day. You would be able to push a button and at all times see the stress level that you are having, so that just like in your car, that you can see the speed the current speed. So it's like your Apple Watch and Oura Ring would be able to give you the average speed, but that is not always so useful. It would be better to be able to see the speed and intensity throughout the day also, which is why Garmin is better. If you want to micromanage your stress levels. So, but not everybody wants to do that, and not everybody needs to do that. If you are feeling well, you're feeling healthy, you feel you have enough energy, then you may only need to make small adjustments in your lifestyle, and they could be easy to see on, for example, your Apple Watch. If you are finding that you are quite stressed, that you have a lot of symptoms, you have contracted some diseases, you understand that you are easily fatigued, you are under a lot of stress, then you may need a more precise instrument like the Garmin watch to maneuver and navigate your days. So, but as I said, the most important thing is to have the sleep measurements and the heart rate variability overnight.
Okay.
That you and your husband have.
Okay. When we get that, so in general, and correct me if I'm wrong or clarify, in general, a higher HRV means that we are in a less stressed, more balanced state. And a lower HRV is that we're in a higher stress point. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. So if we're talking about taking our health and calibrating that with our HRV, what do we do? Give us some examples of how we would actually do that on a day-to-day basis. If we have our HRV taken at night, we wake up and it says it's a certain number, and I don't even know like what's good, what's not to be desired. Then guide us with like what to do about that.
Usually the wearable, like the Oura Ring, I don't remember the Apple Watch anymore. I used it a couple of years ago. But the Oura Ring, for example, would give you a recovery rate in the morning.
Yeah.
That would be, for example, 85. And it would also tell you, for example, that today you have charged enough energy. You can do like whatever you want. You can do some exercise and so on. And you would also get a sleep score on how good your sleep was. And that kind of give you in the morning estimate of your physiological resources available that day. And then you can make, smaller or bigger adjustments into what you are planning for that day. So say that, for example, if I had been eating a meal with a lot of chili the day before, which I respond terribly to,
Me too.
then I would have woken up in the morning, I would have a recovery score of maybe 60. And it would tell me, okay, today you should relax and recover, maybe rather do some meditation or breath work and don't do the exercise, for example. So usually the wearable would give you advice on your condition and how to interpret your heart rate variability. I would expect that the Apple Watch would have something like that. And particularly, you could have some app. I remember the best app on the Apple Watch is called Athletic, the combination between athlete and analytic. Athletic. That would give you a score, either red if you have a poor recovery, yellow, or green if your recovery is good. So the Apple Watch would have different apps to tell you if the Apple Health, the basic one, does not. I don't remember, as I said. And in the Garmin, that would give me a body battery, which is why I think it's really useful. So it would tell me that your body battery is 80, for example, and throughout the day you will see how it goes down, and I will try to not let it go down below 20. So if I'm somewhere in that sweet zone there, I know that I have good enough resources available. And of course, we're not supposed to be rigid. So if you have a couple of days that are rough and hard and you are using all your forces, that's fine. But you just need to understand that you are pushing yourself and plan for a recovery day, maybe the next day, for example. So you can kind of compose the intensity of your days and weeks. And when you get the insight into your system, it's so much easier. what can be measured can be managed, right?
Yeah.
So when you see, I often I often compare it to the dashboard in your car. So you see the speed, you see how much gas is left on the tank, you see the temperature. You would be warned if your oil is down, it would be warning you. And in the same way, these wearables will use the heart rate, they will use the pattern of movement, they will use the temperature and the oxygen level to provide kind of the same values about what's going on under the hood inside you. These trackers is really, really useful for most people to aid them towards a sustainable stress balance.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I do have the Apple Watch and it does have the HRV, but I don't have any additional apps on top of that. And so I think that's been one of my not pain points with it, but I'll look at it, I'm like, well, what do I do with this? And so I can see it going up and down and it'll measure periodically throughout the day. So, for example, when once a week, I try to have it's short but intense workout, like sprint workout or something like that, where I'm really kicking up and, a high intensity workout. And I can see when I'm done with that, a little bit after that drops way down.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then it'll go up back at night.
Yeah, that's right. So that is good. It's good stress. You are pushing your body, you are making a signal to your body that I need more powers. What happens then after the workout is that you will have more mitochondria. The mitochondria will improve, the powerhouses of your cells. So you're putting a signal to your organism and your basic system that I use this power, I need this power. Because if you were not doing that, say that you had a sedentary lifestyle, you didn't do any exercise, mitochondria are expensive to maintain. So once this system understands that this person is not really having any use for these extra mitochondria, we're saving energy and we are deleting them so that we don't need to, this person is not using them anyway, kind of. So we're just cutting down and downsizing the amount of mitochondria in our body. So it's an important thing to do, even if there will be a temporary decrease in heart rate variability that has shown that you have stressed your body, and then you will recover and build yourself stronger after that. But if you are pushing yourself too hard every day without recovering, then you will just break down your system.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the key. That's what a lot of us have had to work really hard to stop doing, is pushing too hard every day. But
Yeah.
what do you mean by mitochondria are expensive to maintain?
Mitochondria, that will be the powerhouses of your cells. It will take the energy from your food and also from the sun, actually, and provide a currency called ATP in your body that is the energy source that your brain and every cell uses. That's kind of the powerhouses that are at work converting the food into energy. And just maintaining them, having them, costs energy.
Okay.
Example. And for example, when you are exposed to cold, then you will be producing something called brown fat that will be involved in temperature regulation. And it's called brown fat because it has a brown color which comes from mitochondria. But if you're not exposing yourself to cold temperatures, by being comfortable and putting clothes on all the time and being in room temperature all the time, then you will not have that brown fat because it's expensive for the body to maintain when you're not using it to expose yourself to cold. So this is why it's good, probably in the US, just like in Norway, cold exposure, going into the sauna, into the cold plunges is also quite a popular thing to do.
Yes, I have. I certainly have heard a lot about that. And just as a side note, I do know that the recommendations are different for women, particularly menopausal women, higher temperatures. So what, from Dr. Stacy Sims
Yeah,
talks
it
about
would.
this.
Yeah, I know she talked about
55,
it.
yeah.
There is some debate about it.
Okay.
I know that. I think the best person on this is Susanna Søberg. Søberg, she's a Danish woman.
Okay.
She does not agree with Stacy Sims, and I know it depends on the result.
Okay.
I know so many perimenopausal women that this kind of gives them the energy, they feel a lot better. You would also be able to see this from your heart rate.
Okay.
Particularly again with the Garmin,
Okay.
I must say. Then you would see the effect of it. So it may be that many postmenopausal women could not tolerate the amount of stress. They may need to do it easier, maybe not so long time in the water, maybe not so cold water, but you would be able to see that on your Garmin watch, how you respond to this.
Okay.
So, and it's all individual. So we as doctors, we are used to relating to population-based studies and the average of that. So, for example, that would be if you put 1,000 postmenopausal women into the cold, we would get a result back from the average of that. But that does not mean anything to you,
Right.
right? Because you could be anywhere on that scale from the average. Just like say that in your neighborhood the average wages is so and so. That does not mean anything to you. You could have a low wage or high wage. So what the average in your neighborhood, that does not really matter to you. And what these wearables do is that they reveal how you react to a certain stressor or a certain thing.
I appreciate that so much. And I think that that's a fantastic point. I'm also thinking that as someone who lives in Houston, Texas, where it is so hot, then I'm kind of screwed in that department because it never gets cold. Though I definitely feel like I deserve to be, or like my body needs to be up north. But anyway, so thank you for going down that tangent with me.
And heat is a really strong stressor. So if you live in Houston and having like 110 degrees, that is a really hard stressor on your system that you need to know the magnitude of, that you can measure from your heart rate variability.
Okay.
And then it's easier to understand that, okay, I need to ease down on other stressors so that I'm not overstraining myself.
Okay. Heat definitely stresses me out in many ways. Especially right now, my air conditioning is not going, and I'm like, I'm like, anyway, okay. So back to HRV, heart rate variability. How can we use that? So now we kind of have odd understanding, and I know your book, The Pulse Cure, goes into much more detail. So that is definitely a resource that is helpful. But once we get that, how do we use that to help manage our sleep, to help manage our stress, and to improve those HRV numbers, but at the same time improve things that will help us feel better?
Yeah. So, and that is why the Pulse Cure will explain what is useful to do to get better sleep, for example.
Okay.
And some of that would be to have a quite cool bedroom, maybe 60 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit at night. And you would need also to not eat maybe 3 hours before bedtime. Most people find that a late meal, and particularly if that would be ultra processed food, would disturb your sleep way into the night. Mm-hmm. Most people find that calming down the last hour or two before you go to bed, dimming the lights and so on, will make it easier for your body to relax during the night. For example, what I used to think, that if I really pushed hard and went to sleep really tired, that would be a good night's sleep. And that clearly shows on the heart rate variability that that is not right. So the more you can ease down into a calm state before you go to sleep, the better the sleep will be, usually. And often also postmenopausal women will see that their sleep will be a bit harder to manage. You would see the stress levels go up and down throughout the night. then often you would also be able to see that the bioidentical hormones would help you and will relieve the stress during the night also. So many postmenopausal women can try out different hormone replacement therapies and find out what suits them the best by watching their heart rate variability response to that. And other than that, the alcohol is by far the worst killer of sleep. And I don't think I've met anyone using wearables that have not cut down on alcohol when you see the physiological price of it, which is quite expensive. So, and that would be the most important thing to do, and to make sure that you are sleeping between 7 and 8 hours a night. That is also important. And it's actually dangerous. For example, as a doctor, of course, I used to work night shifts and evening shifts and morning shifts and just switch the day, circadian clock back and forth. And I knew it was uncomfortable and painful often to be working at night, but that it was dangerous and carcinogenic, I had no idea. But now we know from the excellent book Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker that if you sleep less than 6 hours a night compared to more than 7, you have double the risk of cancer.
Wow.
So getting enough sleep is not only good for your well-being, it is good for keeping dangerous diseases away, including heart disease and many others. So making sure, so the first chapter in the Pulse is about sleep, because that's the foundation of a good physiology.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on naps, and particularly how they, number one, impact our sleep, and number two, impact our HRV?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, naps should be good. Yeah. And we could see that historically when they started skipping the naps in Greece and Spain and these countries, heart rate or the heart disease rates went up.
Really?
So, yeah. So, and it would depend. Of course, if you get enough sleep during the night, you may not need. In general, the nap should be 20 to 25 minutes and preferably before 2 p.m. Of course, most people would be at work at that time. And if it's a late nap, it could disturb your sleep quality the day after. But of course, if you've had a poor night's sleep, maybe you only got 5 hours that night. For some reason, you were kept up or woke up during the night. I think it's really useful to have a nap. Yeah.
Okay, so if we're listening and we want more information, number one, we go get the Pulse Cure. And number two, can you guide us, like, what are next steps? What tracker? I mean, you seem to be a fan of. And then what do we do from there? Like, does it take a while for the Garmin to populate a certain amount of data from over a certain amount of days? Do we just look at the battery and say, okay, the battery's good, I can do whatever I want, or if the battery's low, then I got to take it easy or not do anything? And so kind of, can you just give us some general guidance with that?
Yeah. As you say, I would definitely recommend Garmin if you don't have any particular interest in any of the other devices. It's also the cheap one. You would get it down to like $250. So it's you can probably even buy it secondhand. And it will use 3 weeks to calibrate itself to your system. And I often recommend not to change anything in the first maybe month or even longer, so that you know your baseline from where you are starting. That's interesting, So I would have loved to know mine, from the very start of my health journey. So don't change anything, and then change it little by little. If you know that you have a stress system, you understand that you are a person that have a lot of stress in your life, it's really important to be patient. And even if you see that your watch or device will give you like the alarm signals, literally, go to your mechanic and fix this. Then it's important to be patient and be accepting of what you are seeing. It's just a reality check. It's what's going on in your body, and if you have been stressed for many years, it can take a long time to get out of it as well, with small steps at a time. And to also use things like breathing exercises, breath work, to be able to calm yourself down.
Yeah. Well, two total stories. One, I have a colleague who wears an Oura Ring, and so she has it set up to give her an alarm, I guess, on her phone if she gets too stressed throughout the day. And so that's her cue to take a pause, like have some mindful breathing or meditation or whatever she does for 5 minutes. And she said if she does that, or if she does not do that, she notices a difference with her sleep that night, even if it happens at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting to me. And then the second story is a bit more personal. So my husband's in a fairly stressful job. And at the beginning of the year, he started coming home when he got home from work after kind of a high amped day and lots of traffic and, in Houston area and all of that. He would just go to a room. He would do probably about 10 minutes of meditation, something along that lines. And then he'll take like 5 minutes and pray. But, of course, that can also be journaling or whatever. And his Oura Ring, I mean, you could see, is it not the resilience? What's the metric that it
Yeah, I think it has some resilience score. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
so.
I mean, you could see that resilience going up and up and up. And that's not the right score. That's not the right name for it, but that's basically what it is. I mean, it was fascinating to see just that one change he had, how much that impacted his whole physical being. He slept better. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
wow, why don't we do this all the time? And
Yeah.
he's kind of gotten off the habit of it. In fact, even last night, I was like, hey, I think I was supposed to, you haven't done that in a while. Did you want me to remind you? And he was like, yeah, I was just thinking about that too. So I don't know why we don't like do this more often. But yeah, I mean, I can just, like I said, just those are anecdotal, right? And I think it's important.
Yeah,
to
but
point that out,
it's typical. It's typical.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
what most people, everybody will have those kind of experiences that they will see that, oh, this relaxes me, or this stresses me. Wow, I didn't know that. So when you suddenly get insight into you will be surprised. And we are not really equipped from nature side to know these things, because we have excellent senses for the outward threats. We have eyesight, we can see millions of shades of color, and we can hear a twig breaking far away and a bird chirping, and we have an excellent smell and taste and sense of touch. But the sense of our inner stress, we are not really equipped to feel. So this is like having a substitute for that sense that we never needed to develop, but that in our times is really super important. So many people think that, okay, why don't we just listen to our bodies? But we are not really equipped to be very good at that.
Yeah. Okay, so that answers a question that I wanted to ask. So I will just not ask the question. But yeah, it is, because like a lot of us too are relearning to listen to our body. It's like, oh, I am hungry, I need to eat, or oh, I am satisfied, I can stop, instead of tracking everything in a fitness tracker or a diet app or something. And so that's a great explanation of like, we were not designed to have to deal all of this that we are, and it's very difficult to manage the internal signals, or to understand the internal signals without a little help.
Yeah, and in the beginning you must expect that it will be all new to you, and maybe you will be too stressed by it. But after a while, it's just like in your car, in your dashboard. You just take a look at it once in a while and check your speed, check that you have enough gas left, that you're not, when you have to start looking for a gas station and so on. You just check that the outside temperature is so and so. You will be used to it, but in the beginning it can be stressful for some people, and particularly if they see that their body is under stress, that they get all red signals and alarms beeping, right? And that just means that there's a lot to gain also from getting control over this, to prevent, because the problem if your heart rate variability is low and you're stressing too much, the problem is that your immune system is not working efficiently. It's not enough resources allocated to your immune system because your body is under stress. So your immune system is underperforming, and that can lead to any kind of disease. So that you can literally Google, or now in these days rather, put a disease that you are either have or are curious about, and add if it has a connection to heart rate variability, and most diseases will have that. It's connected to the most serious diseases like dementia, Parkinson, diabetes, cancer, heart disease, stroke, and all of this.
What about autoimmune?
Like, okay, yeah, that too. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so you've written this book, The Pulse Cure. Sounds like, yeah, a bestseller in Norway and beyond. We're trying to get this more publicized here in the States. Tell us more about what we will get in the book and then where to get it.
Yeah, in the book, I'm explaining the essentials about the autonomic nervous system, the different parts of our brain that is involved. I'm explaining about the immune system, about how, of course, we can use heart rate variability that we have been talking about. And then there is something I call an expedition, where, because to change your lifestyle is hard, and you have to brace yourself for some effort. You either do the effort to stay healthy, or you will get sick, and then the effort comes after that. It's less controllable. So I have expedition stages of sleep, stress management, movement, things regarding alcohol, and active rest, as I call it, just like meditation and breath work and that stuff. So it's a guided expedition, so to say, until to find your stress balance. And it's also an audiobook, so I know that many podcast listeners would rather listen to a book than reading it. I'm not the narrator, it's a British person that does that.
Okay. Well, it sounds like expedition was probably an intentional word, carrying your love for activity.
Yeah, I love expeditions. Not the most dramatic ones, but to do some sailing or some long trekking, I also like.
Yeah. All right. Very good. All right. So, Torkil, I have a few questions I like to ask all of my guests. One of them is I love learning about people's tattoos, because I have found that when someone chooses to put something on their body for their life, they typically have a meaning behind it. So, I was wondering, if you have a tattoo, if you would be willing to share what it is and the meaning behind it. If you don't, but you had to get one, what would it be and where?
I don't have a tattoo. I was close to doing it in French Polynesia, in the Marquesas Islands, where I think the tattoo originally comes from.
Oh, really?
But I didn't do that, and I'm not sure. I would probably not have anything written, but rather a pattern, I think.
Okay. All right. And then tell people how they can connect with you and where they can go to purchase the Pulse Cure.
Again, the Pulse Cure, they could buy at the Amazon, for example. They would be able to get it on the iPhone, also in the book app on the iPhone, probably on the Android as well. I'm on Instagram,
Okay.
Dr. Torkil, dr.torkil, or also doc_Torkil. That is only English in the last one. So that is where they can reach me. I'm on LinkedIn also with my own name, of course. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And we'll put that all in the show notes so people can that.
Yeah, and also I have a website called thepulsecure.com, where I have a video where you can see what I mean about the gauge, explaining everything with the graphs and so on.
Okay. That sounds good. Okay, so what I typically like to do on this show is I let the guest have the word, and that is where you pick out one simple thing that we have discussed in our conversation. It can be big or small, but what is one simple thing that you would like my community to remember about our conversation?
I think what's most important is that we have more control over our health than we would have thought, and that you can use the wearables and your heart rate to help you, to guide you towards a better stress balance. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That sounds great. Thank you so much. That is all for today. Go out there and have a great day.